While he was the 6th overall pick in the 2018 MLB draft, Jarred Kelenic has not lived up to the hype that was once surrounding him. I think fans everywhere are asking themselves, should we stop waiting on the breakout? Is he ever going to be anything more than a replacement level player, fourth outfielder type guy? Hey guys, it's Flighty Sampson. Today I'm going to walk you through what I think is next for Jarred Kelenic. We're going to look at where he's been, what he's done, and what I think his future looks like. I personally am not fully over expecting good things out of him. I think there's always some level of commitment that you bring to one of your favorite prospects. It's really hard to get over someone who's looked as good as Kelenic has, but he would not be the first top prospect that didn't pan out. I also think there's just a tendency now to overhype every prospect and think there's something that they're not. And while he may not have lived up to that hype yet, there's got to still be a chance, right? I think if you were a Seattle fan, you were probably a little upset to see him go, and if you're a Brave fan now, you probably don't like that he's still there. I am going to say some negative things about Jarred Kelenic. I do not hope that Jarred Kelenic fails. I want to see every big leaguer succeed. There's a reason they got to where they're at. I hope the best for all of them. I'm just here to present data, try and look at it in a certain way, and use that to predict. You are free to make your own observations, predictions, conclusions. I encourage that. So enough of me yapping, let's get into it. Kelenic has now completed his 4th major league season, with the Atlanta Braves being the 3rd organization he has been a part of. Kelenic was acquired by the Braves in the 2023 offseason, along with Evan White and Marco Gonzalez for 2 Atlanta Braves prospects. At the time, Kelenic was coming off of his best season, which was a solid performance compared to his first 2 seasons. 746 OPS, contributed by a 253 batting average, a 327 on base, and a 419 slug, while hitting 11 home runs and stealing 13 bases. After being sent back down to the minor leagues in both of his first 2 seasons, it finally looked like Kelenic was on the right track. While the year-end numbers for Kelenic implied he was an above-average hitter, he really just had a blazing hot March and April, and then was below average for the rest of the year. He started his season with a 982 OPS, but when the calendar flipped to May, he had a 670 the rest of the way. Now, if you checked out his Savant page, there was actually a lot of change, but maybe not what you were hoping for. His barrel rate in 2023 at 9.5% was actually the lowest of his career at that point. The strikeout rate also hadn't changed much, 31.7%, that's bottom 7th percentile. The walk rate was actually one of the highest of his careers, 9.9%. Pretty good, you could live with that. The ex-WOBA, ex-batting average, and expected slug, also all above average, pretty good signs there. So one of the top prospects you had acquired for a pretty sizable package had finally started to show signs of playing like a real big leaguer. Why in the world would you get rid of him then? Ultimately, there were a few things that contributed to this. The first, and probably what's always most important, is money. Marco Gonzalez hadn't been good, hadn't been healthy. They wanted to get rid of him. Same with Evan White. They signed him to a contract, and it did not pan out at all. Probably one of the only ways you're going to get a team to take on one or both of those is by throwing in a pretty good young player. It also seems that Kelenic and the Mariners had a very weird relationship. There was a report at one time that Kelenic had accused the Mariners of service time manipulation because he had been told that if he signed an extension with Seattle that they were going to bring him up, and he didn't want to sign that extension, so he was not called up. There was also the idea of trying to retool the Mariners lineup. They had one of the highest strikeout rates among MLB teams and were trying to move away from that. So they also got rid of Eugenio Suarez and Kelenic, who were both really big contributors to that. Also, spoiler, that didn't work out at all in 2024 for the Mariners. So a young Jarred Kelenic, coming off of his best season so far in baseball, is now joining a team in a more hitter-friendly ballpark that has recently won a World Series, that has a great core. You got to think that this is best case scenario, right? You're going to go out and be even better. 3 more years, you're going to get paid. Unfortunately, nothing in Atlanta this past season really worked out in any way that Kelenic or the Braves had hoped for. So everything actually started off all right in Atlanta for Jarred Kelenic. He made a slight swing change in spring training, looked pretty good. He won the starting job. They didn't even say they were going to platoon with anybody. He was going to be their left fielder with Michael Harrison center and Ronald Acuna in right field. That got to be like a top 5 outfield on paper, right? At least at that time. The next few weeks would not go as great. They were so bad that the Braves ended up having to bring Adam Duvall back in to take on some time in left field. They would go on to platoon with each other, was going to be the new plan. And you have to think, okay, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. Let him get a little more comfortable. Season's still young. He's a veteran. What could go wrong? One of the biggest reasons why Atlanta seemed to be a good place for Kelenic was the lack of offense he would theoretically need to provide. With Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna, Michael Harris, they had so many other weapons. Unfortunately, Ronald Acuna would tear his ACL less than 50 games into the season, and Michael Harris would also miss pretty significant time with some injuries. So Kelenic was thrust into a role that he wasn't prepared for and one that he probably still isn't ready for. At his best, Kelenic is probably an average defender, but because of the injury to Harris, he was forced to play significant time in center field to about average results, albeit thankfully. But it was something he hadn't really been asked to do in Seattle all that much since 2021. And back then, even the numbers weren't that great. Weirdly enough, he probably plays a better right field than any other position, but because of Acuna, that spot's pretty locked up in Atlanta. JK also spent the most of his playing time in Atlanta as the leadoff man. He is far what you would think of from a normal leadoff guy, and the numbers kind of back that up, but he wasn't that bad. A 720 OPS, but that's mostly from slug. A 429 slug to a 291 on base and a 227 batting average. Only walked 15 times while striking out 49 from the first spot. Again, it's just really something you probably don't want him having to do. Atlanta's entire offense was also pretty far from how exciting and explosive it was in the 2023 season, and I'm sure part of that has to do with Acuna, but there was significant regression from what we had seen from Matt Olson. Austin Riley also didn't perform nearly as well, and Ozzie Albies kind of took a step back to what we had previously seen aside from 2023, while also missing a pretty large amount of time. I don't even think you can really understate just how much Atlanta's offense changed. In 2023, the Braves had a 125 WRC+, the best in baseball. When you get to 2024, 16th in baseball with a 100, so about average. That's a significant amount of change from one year to the next. While everything did seem to go wrong for Atlanta in 2024, time goes on. The season moves on. The Braves are still trying to win. Alex Anthopoulos, the Braves general manager, head of baseball guy, has said that the only locks in the outfield are a healthy Ronald Acuna and Michael Harris. Jarred Kelenic probably has a short leash heading into 2025. Maybe he's just a platoon guy. Maybe he's just a bench guy. But that's not good news for Kelenic as it stands right now. One of the biggest problems I have with Kelenic is that if he cannot be an everyday player, then he doesn't really fit any other kind of role. While he may have a pretty impressive barrel rate, the power just isn't generating with that. He's never had more than 15 homers in a season. He also just doesn't walk a lot. When you combine this real lack of game power with a pretty pedestrian walk rate, he's not even like a 3 true outcome slugger type guy. He also doesn't really factor in as a defensive replacement. He's average there at best, even though he's got a pretty good arm. He's also not even really a platoon. He doesn't hit righties amazingly better for his career. 2024, yes, he did, but in 2023, his best season, he actually hit lefties a decent amount better. I have a few more closing stats that sum up just how bad Kelenic has been since he entered the league. He has the 15th highest K rate, the 44th lowest WRC+, and the 35th lowest OPS. I could also probably make a comparison between another player that had pretty high hopes that gets a lot more hate, and I don't know if they should. Joe Adell actually had a better season than Jarred Kelenic last year. Higher WAR, higher OPS+. Looks kind of like a ball player. Again, somebody we thought he could be. And I feel like we all just laugh at Joe Adell, but we think that Kelenic breakout's coming. While I do think it's possible that 2025 could bring a diminished role for Jarred Kelenic, I don't think it's by any means the end of his career. I feel like plenty of other former top prospects get a lot more chances, even if he changes around to a few other teams. Especially with that high barrel rate, hard hit rate, a number of teams could think if he's in our system, we could fix it. We could tap into some part of that power that still seems to be there. Those of you that stayed till the very end, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was the first type of long form content I've tried, so I know it's not going to be perfect. Let me know what you think about Jarred Kelenic in the comments. Let me know what you think about the video in general. Tell me if you agree, if you disagree, what else you'd like to see. All of that's very appreciated. Feel free to check out my channel. I have a lot of shorts. Been talking a little bit about the off-season stuff going on, a little bit of prediction stuff. The goal is to try and produce more long-form content like this, so bear with me as I try and figure that out. Thank you guys again so much. I've been Flighty Samson. I'll see you next time.